So I want to highlight something that you said that I also think is a critical component of the recipe for not burning out, and that is really being clear on our boundaries and increasing our boundaries and awareness around where we need the boundaries. And what you said, Faisal, is you recognized that what this person said to you had a really strong impact on you. You chose on how it impacted you. And then you also realized that if you continued to listen to the negative spin that they had on what they told you, that would probably have a negative impact on you. And so you set a boundary and you're like, you're welcome to be in my life if you want to, continue to watch and support me. But if you don't want to support me, then see ya. Or, then we'll minimize contact, whatever the scenario is, of course, depending if it's family or friends, like we all have to make those decisions. But that's really important. And I think it highlights one of the importance, like we talked about the value of being with a community of like-minded coaches that are really working at building business, because it's providing that input of positivity and support. But we also need to recognize that they're in the back end. We may have people in our lives that are ruining that positivity by their negativity and their pessimism and the negative emotional suck that they have in our lives. So when you notice those people, we have to make a decision. And if you want to give and you're set on giving coaching, your everything, meaning that you are devoted to making it work, however long it takes, whatever it needs, you will stick with it and you will do it. We have to limit the negative energy suck, or the negative energy/energy suck that people have in our lives. And so making some hard decisions in that, I think, is a huge piece of that.
Yeah, and it's so important because, and especially something like when I was starting out almost a decade ago, I mean, nobody knew what the hell coaching was. I mean, now it's becoming more in common conversation. Actually, people are looking at it as a very normal thing, which is very odd for me, even in my family and stuff. They're like, oh yeah, I saw a coach here, and it's showing up in conversations. It's not an odd thing, but when I was showing up, it's like, what? You're gonna leave an engineering career to go into coaching? People are gonna pay you thousands of dollars to talk to you? Why would they talk to you, and why would they pay you? Like they couldn't, and to be honest, it was hard for me to explain it to begin with, and they didn't understand it. And the thing that made a big difference for me is that good thing, even from the beginning, I was connected to other coaches. And the more I realized that I didn't have that support and understanding in my own network, I had to be around other people who were more understanding of this. I had to be around other people who had done this before. That helped a lot, which you pointed out. That had I not had that, I might have made a different decision. That might have been the blow I needed to give up in that process. But the other side of it is one thing to understand. This comes up with clients as well. A lot of times when you're doing something new and completely weird, it's different. Nobody has known about it. You share that with the people around you, they will be very negative about it. Not because they're trying to hurt you. A lot of times they're trying to protect you. The people are, and at the time it doesn't feel like that. Actually, years later, I've had these conversations with especially with a couple of my family members who were very against what I was doing, and they were not helpful, and they were very close to me too. I'm like, and I went back to them, and because they're like, oh, I'm so proud of you, you did this. And I paused and I'm like, you remember that you were very unsupportive of this in the beginning, right? And I just brought it up to them just because people just forget as if nothing happened. I'm like, that had a big impact. I'm like, that was very unhelpful. And it actually came up around a time where they were being unsupportive towards somebody else. And I stopped. I'm like, do you remember when I was starting out years ago and you were saying that, oh, have you thought about this? That was just putting me down. It wasn't
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
Now you are proud of me, but at the time I needed support. I needed encouragement. Now you're doing the same thing to this other person. How do you think that person is feeling in this process? But it was a complete lack of awareness. They didn't even know they were doing that.
Yeah.
But to me, it was a big impact. And this is what happened. So when people around you are doing this, and by the way, this shows up with clients as well. And a lot of times I've actually seen coaches when they see negativity in their environment, oh, cut these people out. As like, have you considered why these people are being a certain way? That's not how life works, though. And there are times, of course, people can be abusive and other things, and you can distance yourself at times. And to be honest, I did distance myself with time, not completely, but I created a structure in my life. I'm like, I'm gonna dedicate this time to my business and to my well-being and to my family, and whatever's left, I'm gonna dedicate to. It gave me the space to think about it. But a lot of times coaches, when they're working with their clients, they don't explore this enough, and they
Yeah.
don't help their clients find out where they can get the support they need. And this will be true for you. If you are in a space where you don't have the support, you need a community. You need people who understand what you're doing, what you're going through. This is why even when people who are going through cancer, what's one of the first things that they do? They connect them with other people who are going through that stuff. Now, of course, this is not
Absolutely.
cancer, but just different language.
Right. And so a couple scenarios in my own life, not related to coaching, but that are totally relevant about reacting to somebody that's negative. I remember about 4 years ago, I talked with my dad, my parents for the first time about my idea about taking my kids to overseas to live for a period of time. We're still working on the plan up to this point. That conversation I had with him, like my dad also, he's an engineer, very analytical, and he immediately went to I could picture what was going through his mind by his words, because he immediately was like talking about all the challenges, all the problems, all of the potential pitfalls of living in another country with kids, all the things that could happen to them. And I remember hanging up the phone with him after that 25-minute phone call and just being deflated because I was so excited about the opportunity and all the positive things that it would bring based on my research and and all the things that I was kind of figuring out. And I felt like he totally deflated my balloon, and it felt miserable. And so I reflected on it and realized, he was coming from a place of love, of concern, of safety. Safety was his primary value in that moment. Mine was not safety. Not that I'm just going to throw my kids into the wolves, but I was coming from a different lens. And so my solution was not to cut my dad out of my life. I just didn't have that conversation with him anymore. I stopped talking to him about all of the exciting things I was learning about living overseas. It was that simple. And we went back to our normal pattern and our normal relationship, which is very loving. And so I just, so there's these moments, and there's other scenarios in my family, my extended family, where I'm just like, oh, yeah, they don't respond well to that type of conversation. So I just won't bring it up. Same,
But
same
that
thing.
needs to be replaced by somebody, and that's the key. Is like, then
Absolutely.
who are you going to have that conversation with?